Okay, this is kind of a tough video to make, predominantly because it's not going to be all good news. And I have to kind of agree with Scott Mendelson here, which I really hate doing, but ultimately he's got kind of a point. He penned an article this morning titled "Alita Battle Angel Box Office: Why 400 million Worldwide Isn't Big Enough." And ultimately, the good news is that Alita, through the pushing of a lot of people out there, got it over $400 million worldwide, which was the estimated break even point for the movie. And with, 20th Century Fox having put out an estimated $170 million for production, not including marketing. And I read another article yesterday that had said that it was potentially anywhere between 300 to 350 million that they had put into this movie overall. Again, no sources to back any of that up, by the way. Like, no sources to back any of that up. All we really have for the $170 million budget is what's coming off of Box Office Mojo. So even that's kind of a weird one. Like, who's to say? They never really come out and tell us everything. But if the movie is looking to be a loss for the studio, obviously they're going to try to inflate the budget as being much higher. So then they have, they have more to ultimately write off as a loss, which is just unfortunate. But still, when it comes to the concept of Alita Battle Angel and getting a sequel, 400 million should be enough for people at Disney. Well, I mean, Fox is still technically going to be vertical to Disney, but people at Disney and Fox to look at it and go, maybe there's a good idea there for a sequel. Now, another thing that a lot of people aren't talking about ultimately is the fact that James Cameron owns the rights to this. He owns the rights to Alita, at least her film rights, exclusively owns those rights, has had them for over 20 years. So he could take this movie to another studio. They could lower the budget, which they probably will. They could lower the budget, take it to another studio, go through another distributor, and put the movie out there that way, especially if the home video sales do well enough in order to kind of help it make a little bit more money. The unfortunate side of it is the likelihood of Alita Battle Angel doing super good numbers on home video is low unless more and more people start pushing to buy a copy for themselves and buy a copy for their friends. Treat it kind of like Dread Day that we have every year, where people buy a copy of Dread for someone who doesn't own it and hasn't seen it, to help, remind Lionsgate and those guys that we want a damn sequel. However, in this day and age, it might be a little bit better because there could be a viral push for it. People could make videos saying, I'm going to the store, I'm buying 2 copies of Alita, one for me, one for a friend. I'm taking that Alita challenge, and I'm trying to make sure we get a sequel on this one. That ultimately, in my opinion, is probably going to be the better course of action for trying to actually get a sequel. Waiting for the studio to decide whether or not they want to make a sequel might actually be a little bit on the bad side, just because they don't really have a reason to do it right now. Keep in mind, with Fox being bought out by Disney with $71.3 billion having been spent, there's already been a number of layoffs. Fox Searchlight, or Fox 2000, is gone. They're estimating between 4,000 and 10,000 jobs are going to be ultimately lost here. And that's a problem, because the jobs that are going to be lost are obviously somewhat duplicate jobs, people who work in the marketing department and accounting and things like that are going to be taken over by Disney now and handled by Disney. So there is an understandable amount of job loss there. But the point I'm trying to get to is that what we're going to be seeing potentially is a situation where they don't want to invest another 150 to 200 million dollars into a sequel for a movie that just did okay. So they're probably not going to want to do that right away. Now, Scott does bring up a good point for people who want to see a sequel, and that ultimately boils down to Avatar 2. Now, I said this on the Nerdcasters podcast the other day, but I truly believe that Avatar 2 will hit the $3 billion mark. I do. I really think that. I think because of the spectacle of Avatar, the curiosity of Avatar, the fact that it was an experience that people are looking forward to having replicated, James Cameron having a very, very, very long time, like over a decade, to really perfect this kind of stuff. The fact that it's going to take place predominantly underwater and the effects that we're going to be able to see from that. I mean, look at Aquaman in regards to water effects and how cool it was. Now think about how James Cameron is going to blow that out of the damn water. That's what I'm talking about here, is those kind of things. James Cameron is going to turn Avatar into an experience. And if it does well enough, if it can do well enough, then it's entirely possible that Disney will look at him and go, well, you've made us a lot of money. What can we do for you, sir? How can we return the favor? You know what I mean? Hold it and just do that, right? And that could be Alita 2, getting the budget that way for Alita 2, getting a vanity project. Vanity projects happen when certain movies do well. So that is entirely a possibility that if Avatar 2 does well, that we will get to see Alita 2. The problem with that is, though, is that's not until 2021. That's a long time. That's still a couple years before Avatar 2. And I think Alita's got to strike while the iron is hot. If you leave Alita to sit, it will turn into dread. It will turn into dread. Fans of Alita Battle Angel who want to see a sequel cannot wait until Avatar 2 to give their support. They have to do it now. Hollywood doesn't work on things like that in a long-term form. You know what I mean? They don't really like things that are far down the road that could potentially make money. They want to make the money now. So the best course of action that anyone could ultimately do is to still push for Alita sequel. Hashtag that shit. If you want to like write a letter to like James Cameron, maybe like we could get a letter campaign going on, send it right to Lightstorm, his particular office. I'd be happy to help organize that. If people have an interest, let me know in the comments. Maybe we can actually organize something that will take it from just a change.org petition to a legitimate letter writing campaign in order to get a sequel. And that's something that I do feel is worth it. Look, my desire to see Alita 2 comes from the fact that I love the first movie 100%. I want there to be more stories told within this, but I also want to look at this as a way to potentially save a franchise from despair, where we've lost so many other franchises that could have had potentially great, super profitable sequels that studios were too cowardly to ever actually act upon because they're afraid of the bottom line and having maybe a couple bad movies under their belt. But they always have bad movies and they just move on to the next bad movie. But they never invest into these characters, even though they set these worlds up. And maybe we as people, as a society, as a movie-going public, want to actually see the change. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm being too idealistic here. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But I think if you want to save Alita 2, it is going to be a combination of getting money for Avatar. That is true. But also making sure that the pressure is never let up on. And that James Cameron knows that there's a large fan demand for it. Again, you want to see that, you write